Pew pew.
Hi guys. Today I want to talk about the absolute importance of finding what skill or hobby fulfills you in life and the repercussions of what it can do to you if you avoid doing so because of the stresses of your day-to-day life from having to work too much or being in a repetitive cycle because of your schoolwork or your job. Now, I want to preface, I know that it's definitely not easy to just go out and do whatever you want with how society works, where you have to go to school and then study and then go to work and then you're tired and it's like a cycle and all that. It's definitely not easy to do that for sure. It's really hard to be able to find a balance. And even when you do have time, you're already kind of like caught up in the cycle itself. So at that point it's really hard to just get out of it, and then you're already really stressed out. So you end up just wanting to watch Netflix or play a video game or something to blow off steam, and then it kind of becomes hard to get back into the mindset of wanting to do that. And I completely understand that. So I want to let you guys know that I know completely and honestly that it is not easy, and I have been caught in the exact same cycle for at least 18 years of my life. I'm completely understanding of that. So, how it works is that you're forced into a certain mold as soon as you have to go to school. And I think one of the biggest problems is that school, aside from having to deal with all the negativity of bullying and all that stuff, the way school works is that it makes learning not fun. It makes you feel like learning is not supposed to be fascinating or something. I think as human beings, we're supposed to want to love to learn. Like, knowledge is everything. We should want to know knowledge because knowledge is power. Knowledge molds us into who we are and who we're gonna be. And then school just makes you feel like it's a chore and that you don't want to do it and that you'd rather just go off and be lazy. So you have to get up every single morning, probably tired, and then you have to go sit down at a class and then be hammered information in your head over and over and over again that you don't find interesting. And then you have to go home and then continuously hammer it in your head for like the next 10 years. And then when you're finally out of school, you don't want to do it anymore because you've done it for like the past 10 years, so you have this notion that it's just an awful thing. Knowledge gives us power over our surroundings and our own peace of mind. It's so important, and the fact that school ruins that is awful. I don't know if it does this on purpose to breed averageness or if it's just an out of date way of teaching and they haven't bothered like updating it yet. I don't know. But please don't ever feel like just because you were taught to learn like that, that knowledge isn't fun, because it is. So I'm going to tell you right now, the chances of finding who you really are by listening to what everyone tells you what to do or what you're made to do is basically close to nothing. The fact that you're supposed to find a job immediately after you finish school is really messed up, because how, like, you went to school, right, and you had to study all those years. Where in that time frame did you actually have a chance to sit down and think for yourself what you actually like doing and what your actual real hobbies are? There aren't many people that actually have the time to be able to think about that kind of stuff. So now that you found a job that you think that you want, you basically can't escape because you have to do this for the rest of your life, or else you're not going to be able to make money to support yourself. It's always, I gotta do this or else. No one actually respected your existence enough to give you time for you to just sit down and think what you actually want for yourself. As a human being with a mind, you should have the authority to be able to make your own decisions, but it's really hard when you're being constantly pushed left and right and you never actually have the chance to think. The school system is probably only the tip of the iceberg, too. What about all the people in your life that are like nagging you left and right about wanting you to be successful or wanting this or that for you? You don't want to like disappoint your friends and look like a bum. You don't want to disappoint your family. Your family expects you to get a job, have a family, have kids just like they did. Like, everyone has all these expectations for you. This endless cycle needs to stop, but unfortunately, in the time of our grandparents, they didn't really have a choice because of their circumstances. But I feel like at this point, we have a little bit more room to be able to create our own opportunity. They didn't know any better and it's not their fault, but it doesn't mean that you need to follow in their footsteps. So at this point, you're probably already done with school, and I got the message across, but what is one supposed to do? So I'm saying all of this, and I guess it might sound a little bit unfair to people because, like I said, where in this time did you actually have a chance to be able to do anything? I feel like it would be a lot more beneficial if on the side of school or job or whatever you're doing, you had a substantial amount of time to be able to actually practice hobbies or things that you wanted to do. But because of the repetitive cycle, people end up just coming home and browsing Facebook or watching Netflix or something like that. To me, I find it very sad that during the COVID-19 lockdown, a lot of people had anxiety or were really stressed out about the fact that they couldn't go to work because they didn't know what to do at home. They didn't see it as an opportunity to actually like find their hobbies or do things that they wanted. Everyone has basically forgotten how to think for themselves and do anything other than work and consume. To me, that was actually a great opportunity to actually have time for yourself. You actually had the chance to just sit down and learn things. So when you're first born into this world, you're a lot more creative and you ask a lot more questions and things are actually a lot more interesting to you. You like creating and thinking of a lot of abstract things that are out of the norm. At least I did. As time goes on, you're kind of forced to let go of this mentality and become an adult. Let me bet you that when you were younger, you actually asked a lot more questions. Think about it. What happened when time went on? Did you just stop finding interest in asking questions, or were your questions never actually met with reasonable responses? Okay, so let me do a little bit of prefacing on how I've found my passion before I continue. So, content creation and stuff like cosplay is amazing to me. I'm so grateful that I do it. It utilizes a portion of my creativity and has definitely helped me find myself a lot more, but it's definitely not all of me. So, when I was little, I was always ecstatic about the idea of creation. I would always come up with stories in my head. So, like, when there was a song playing in the background, I would always come up with like some sort of story in my head for that song. Or I'd be like sitting in class, daydreaming, thinking of scenarios or stories or anything like that. When I got older, around like 9 or 10, and I finally had my own computer, I actually would make slideshows on Windows Movie Maker. And the reason I would just make slideshows is because I had a really, really terrible computer, like a 90s computer in 2006 with dial up. So, and then on top of that, I had the tons of malware and stuff because I didn't know how to use a computer. So it was really, really slow. I could only make slideshows. And what was even worse is the slideshows would actually lag even on Windows Movie Maker. So what I had to do was I actually had to render it, which would take hours, like a lot of hours. And then I would have to upload it on YouTube, which would take more hours. And then finally, when it was on YouTube, I could actually watch it. So the only time I could watch the finished product without it lagging was it already being on YouTube with like the complete finished product. So a lot of people would be like, what the hell is wrong with you? But to me, with everything that I was going through, that was everything to me. So finally, eventually I got a better laptop and then I moved on to actual AMV making. And AMV making was absolutely everything to me. Seeing my projects flourish on YouTube and people commenting literally meant everything to me. I would watch AMVs that I liked on YouTube and I would watch them over and over again to try to understand the emotional cues in the AMV so I could also utilize their techniques. So recently, I've realized why I've had such an obsession with cutting up anime and displaying all the beautiful emotional parts of it. It's because I wanted people to see the same thing that I saw. So if I put it in a specific sequence to a beat that people can digest, they can then understand the complexity of the emotions that I'm trying to convey beyond the human language. So what I'm trying to say is basically English is a very restrictive form of communication. So when you try to explain an emotion in the English language, it's actually just a generalization. but art is a way to explain it beyond just generalizing. So when you hear like a song, or when you watch like a music video or something, you feel like the specific emotion that the person is trying to convey beyond just understanding that the person is like sad or happy. Of course, I wasn't conscious of any of this at the time. All I knew is that it made me really, really happy. So, what I realized is that what really fulfilled me was actually just writing stories. I love writing stories and having people understand the specific emotions that I'm trying to convey to them. Ever since I realized this about myself, I've become a completely different person, and I've actually seen it happen to the people around me as well. I actually have a very close friend who just recently started getting into music after he kind of gave it up because he was going through a lot of hardships in his life, like a relationship that he wasn't happy with, and also a job that he hated. So we kind of got demotivated and let it go. But he's been doing a lot better. So just recently he got back into it. And he was always a person that was very afraid of confrontation and was always very quiet and had a hard time telling people how he felt. And he's now a completely different person. He's now showing us pieces of his ego that I previously thought never could exist in him. I have another friend who's actually been getting into drawing recently, and she's always actually been like a very aggressive and confrontational person. But ever since she got into drawing, she's been able to like show off a side of her that she can't convey through words. She's been a lot more patient and understanding with everybody. So, what I'm trying to say here is basically that our mind was built to create things. And when we don't create things and we don't feel like people understand us, we go insane. When we halt our creativity, or even worse, because of how life is, forget that we ever had it, we have nothing. We have no direction, no ego. I'm sure a lot of people are unconsciously thinking, what's the point of being a good person if nobody understands me? Be a good person to society, but then like what's in it for you because you feel like you're not being heard? Why would you go through all that effort if nobody understands you? What's in it for you? So please do your best to spend some time with yourself. You absolutely deserve it. As beautiful as technology is, it's made us very distractible because now we could just go on our phones and then just spend the next couple hours on Instagram or Facebook and not doing anything. And our minds become very distractible because of that. So it's easy to really lose touch with reality. And that's definitely been an ongoing problem with a lot of people. So in that case, I definitely recommend that you shut off your TV, your phone, and try to just meditate. Bring all your thoughts together. This might be the first time in your life that you actually get the chance to breathe.